Oregon is going to the Final Four.
The following is a Learfield presentation of the Oregon Sports Network.
And Oregon is going to play in the national championship game.
This is Duck Insider.
We need to get community. We need this thing to be bigger than just our little circle of players and coaches.
Are you kidding me? Touchdown, Oregon!
With 2 seconds on the clock, he hits it!
That's the bigger picture in this thing, allowing the community to celebrate the hard work, blue-collar mentality this group brings to the table.
And the Ducks have won it! The Ducks have won!
We get to struggle together, and we get to have joy together.
Dante will dribble it out! The Ducks are Pac-12 tournament champions!
I am so proud right now to be the head coach at Oregon.
Oregon's a Fiesta Bowl champion in a 12-win season.
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Now let's go live to the Country Financial Studio to talk Oregon Duck Athletics.
It's a busy Friday show here in the Country Financial Studio. It's Duck Insider presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Nat Uretsky filling in for Joey McMurray this afternoon. Happy to be with you at the 1 o'clock hour. Got a busy show today talking some Oregon baseball. Track and fields, they're going to be at the Pac-12 championships this upcoming weekend. Baseball there at the University of Washington. Later on, Joey Mack will sit down with Mike Jorgensen. The two of them talked earlier this week, and we'll have that whole conversation, about 30 minutes worth between those two, to play with you today, talking about the conclusion of spring football. Let's go ahead today and start with Oregon baseball. Big series ahead for Oregon baseball. The Ducks, they're taking on the Huskies. It always means a little bit more. Oregon versus Washington tonight, game one of the series, 7:05, Pac-12 Washington. Ryan Milano will have the call on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield. Game number 2 tomorrow, Saturday, 5:05 p.m. on the Pac-12 networks. And then Sunday, it'll be back on Pac-12 Washington, 12:05 p.m. Ryan Milano with you the entire weekend on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield. And overall, big weekend in terms of the Pac-12 standings. And if you look right now, Oregon, they find themselves at number 4 in the Pac-12, 14-10 overall this season in Pac-12 play. Just a half a game behind Oregon State, 14-9 overall. Utah just 1 game ahead of Oregon, 15-9, and then Arizona 3 games ahead of the Ducks, 17-7. The Wildcats at the top of the Pac-12, but Utah and Arizona, those two teams play this upcoming weekend, so a big series for those two at the top of the Pac-12. And depending on how Oregon does against Washington this weekend and Washington State the weekend after, and how Arizona and Utah play each other, Arizona, they also have to play Oregon State, who finds themselves at number 3. So, you know, a lot could happen. Oregon could end the season at the top of the Pac-12, but a lot to go. And overall, Oregon, they win 1 game this weekend. They'll clinch their spot in the Pac-12 championship tournament. So overall, a big weekend for Oregon baseball. If the Ducks win, they'll get into the tournament. If Washington State loses this weekend, the Ducks will also find their way into the tournament. So big weekend overall. Again, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 7:05, 5:05, and 12:05 p.m. Head coach Mark Wasikowski talked to the media earlier this week. We'll have the whole conversation with you here today. Every time that we talk to an Oregon Duck athletic head coach, it's brought to you by the Willamette Valley Cancer Institute and Research Center. Fight like a Duck with exceptional cancer care close to home. Here is head coach Mark Wasikowski.
Old cliche, take it 1 day at a time, 1 game at a time, 1 practice at a time, and, you know, invest everything into each day that you have, you know, from a rest to everything that you can think of standpoint to where, you know, we can be operating at the highest level we can play at.
What have you seen from Washington this year? Not the same team that they were last year, a little down, but always a good competition.
Playing their best baseball right now, probably of the year. They play really good at home. They've been winning 2 out of 3 at home each weekend that they've been doing that now for a little while. At the beginning of the year they didn't, but now lately they have been. They scored a ton of runs this last weekend at Arizona State, and I know the conditions were ripe for that. But still, they're playing really good baseball. They've got power in their lineup still, and they still have about 5 carryovers from last year that are really good hitters.
You said, the Utah series, the offense is kind of clunky. After watching some tape, what do you feel like you guys can do better going into these last 6 games?
Yeah, just consistency. It's been the same theme the whole year. It's just you're trying to get guys that are in their first 100 to 200 at-bats hitting like they're in their 400 or 500th at-bat. And that's, that's kind of hard to make up experience when they don't have it. And so how do you do that? You work tirelessly trying to get those guys familiar with what you see on tape to where they can address their deficiencies and hopefully, get more consistently competitive at the dish.
You've mentioned that like 100 AB threshold a lot of times now. Are there guys who have kind of hit that or come close to hitting that where you've seen them grow after they've reached that 100, 150 threshold?
Yeah, Bryce Betcher. Now he's past the 100 AB threshold, and he's probably getting closer to the next threshold, and he's starting to really swing the bat well, and you can see the difference there. It's just usually your first 100 at bats are spent your freshman year, and then somewhere in the middle of your sophomore year you start figuring it out as hitters, and it feels like no matter what class of a player they are, first year, second year, third year, fourth year player, the kids that we're talking about, they're all in that same boat. Instead of just it being outside their freshman year, it could be outside their third year already, and they still are trying to get to 100, 200 at-bats. And so, they're a little bit older, but they're not older in terms of experience.
This is kind of a more clerical question for me, but you mentioned earlier in the year about Brock Moore potentially moving into like a starting role. Is that still maybe a plan, or like did the injury just kind of derail that and you just want to get him back out of there in the bullpen?
No, he's starting to work his way back into that possibility. We're not there yet, but he's starting to work back into that as a topic of discussion for sure.
With Jackson Jordan coming back from injury too, just what's your confidence level in the bullpen now that you have Moore, Mullen, Jordan, Mercado still back there?
It's good, but Jackson's still not built up yet, and so there's that. And having Moore right now, he's starting to really go good, which is good to see. And so it may give you other options. It's a little too early to start speculating on some of that stuff.
Have you had any conversations about like draft entries or anything like that, or is that a after the season conversation?
No, talking about the draft right now, trying to win a conference championship.
You mentioned one game at a time, but at this point of the year, can looking ahead to the postseason, can that get in the players' minds? Have you seen that throughout your coaching career? And if so, what do you do to make sure that isn't a distraction?
I don't think it is. It shouldn't be a distraction. They saw what happened to a couple of teams in our league last year that got left out. And so I think if those teams were thinking about postseason play and then they got left out, it was a pretty good example. You don't have to look very far to understand that, you don't put things in the hands of committee members and feel confident about them. So you got to take it out of the hands of committee members. The way you do that is win games. So no, I don't. These guys aren't thinking about postseason and all that kind of stuff. That's down the road. They're thinking about winning on Friday night at Washington.
Grayson's been really good, especially against Oregon State and Utah. Just where do you feel like you've seen him kind of step up in recent weeks?
He's dealing with adversity a lot better, I think, than he did at the beginning of the year. I think you're seeing that he, at the beginning of the year, he's never started at this level. So kind of the same discussion that we have with the number of at-bats, the number of starts, there's probably a threshold there when you start really getting comfortable with the routine of a starter and all that. And he was moved in and out of that due to injury, not necessarily his, but others. And so, with Grayson, you're starting to see him, I think, settle into a good rhythm, which is nice. And he's just working through adversity better, I think.
With Walsh, he's now one shy of tying the single season record set by Sabine last year. You've had him all for 3 years now, and you saw him as a freshman. Just did you see this type of development coming from him when he stepped on campus here?
Yes.
What's kind of gone into that development from him? Like how did he get to this level of being a all Pac-12 first baseman potentially?
He's a tremendous human being, tremendous kid. His family did a wonderful job bringing him up, first off. Second off, he's hungry and he wants to develop and he wants to learn, and he knows he's not perfect, and so he's humble in that way. Third reason is Jack Martyr and Brett Thomas and Marcus Hinkle. Those guys have worked tirelessly. Coach Thomas, when it comes to Brett's analytics stuff that he can put together to help assisting in development plans for Jack and for Marcus, has been tremendous, and J-Dub's grabbed a hold of anything that's put in front of him. He's a sponge. Awesome kid. He looks like a really intimidating person, and he can be at times, but when you're talking to him one-on-one, he's more of a teddy bear than an intimidating figure.
We're going to talk to Drew Smith in a little bit here. Just how do you feel like he's done this year after having really high moments as a freshman last season?
He's done fine. I mean, he's not going to tell you he's having a career year, but I think he's done fine. He's playing second base now, and he's been playing second base very well. He's fought through a lot of injuries this year. And so I think that probably has something to do with why maybe the numbers aren't at the level that he wants them to be at. But I think he's done fine. He's been a really good locker room piece and a really good chemistry type guy. He's a hard worker. And so I don't think he'd tell you that he's having the best year of his life, or the expectations that he wanted to have met probably aren't being met quite yet. But, there's still a lot of room left in the year.
Talking about the threshold with Maddox, what have you seen from him? I mean, he was hurt at the beginning of the year, has put together a good freshman season, hit his 7th home run. Where's his development been the last few weeks?
Well, I mean, it's been there, right? And same thing with Ryan Cooney. A while back, Ryan Cooney broke the home run record, and then Maddox now broke his record. And so, it's interesting with the freshmen, because the freshmen are used to a 25 or a 30 game high school schedule. Well, we're well past that now. And so is their high school season done, and are they pretty well done, or do they still have more in the tank? Both of them are physically strong, so that's a good indicator that they have more left in the tank. Maddox is basically split half the year with Cooney. And so I'm hoping that they both have a lot left in the tank here down the stretch, because I can see them both. I know one of them's a starter at this point in time. I could easily see them both being starters moving forward.
And using Ryan as a defensive replacement too. I mean, just the confidence of two freshmen up the middle was like, how good are they defensively? What's the next step for them?
Well, the next step is for them both to be in the starting lineup, and that's going to be earned. And if they earn it, I'm not going to get in the way of them earning it. And so, wherever that can be, they can play into the infield spots, and they're both really good players.
With Bennett Thompson, his time being kind of out of the order, is that more of like the emergence of Meggers, or is he dealing with something?
Nope. Meggers has just earned more playing time at this point.
We talked a lot preseason about how Meggers led the team in RBIs during the fall and the spring. He's now hitting 2, hitting 4, whatever the case may be. Just where have you seen him from a guy who's getting his first career start to now being like a part of the middle of the order?
He kind of worked his way into that. I want to say that probably started with his work last year when he was redshirting, but at the same point, it probably carried over through the summer when he was, I think he won some honors this last summer with his performance offensively, and so you had that as well. And then he had a great fall. He had a great spring, and so what we're seeing with the bat and the average and the high average and the offensive production has just been what we've been seeing. And so to have him and Bennett really going head-to-head at the catching position, both of them are really good. I wouldn't lose any sleep over writing either one of them in the starting lineup, and I honestly think that Bennett actually has probably a lot more in the tank and what he can do, because we've seen it. We saw him go off at the end of last year. When's that going to happen? Maybe this last at-bat that he just had this last weekend is going to assist in that push. We sure hope so, because we need more push offensively. If there's one thing that I think this club can benefit from, it would be more consistent offense. And they're still scoring some runs, but it seems like they're scoring runs pretty much via the long ball versus a sustained offense. And Bennett's proven to be a guy that can hit a long ball, but he can also sustain an offense by stringing hits together, which is good. So I think there's a lot of value in Bennett, and I hope that he earns more and more playing time, like his last swing that he had last weekend as a pinch hitter. Sure helped his cause in the discussions we're having this week in our office.
I haven't asked you about Hawk in a while, but now we're almost near the end of the season. Just what's it been like to have him on staff throughout this season so far?
He's a pretty composed guy. He doesn't get too high or low. I mean, he's used to pitching in front of 50,000 people at Dodger Stadium, or in St. Louis. And so you're talking about two of the greatest baseball cities in the country, that he's actually pitched on those mounds and contributed and knows what that feels like. He's coached in Omaha and coached the pitching staff at Cal State Fullerton in Omaha, and he acts like it. This isn't a young thing for him. He gets it. He rubs off on the other guys, and the more effect that he has on the other guys, and I think the better that they'll do. And I think that's why you've seen some real good progress in a lot of the pitchers.
A lot of the pitchers have mentioned the mental side as like a huge positive for them. Yeah. With talking through Hawk. How do you feel like Hawk's experience at the MLB level, like you said, at Dodger Stadium, and how do you feel like that has helped him kind of just tell that message mentally?
I think that, and I think he's a big believer in what Brian Cain has to offer. Brian Cain's our sports performance coach here, and he's a guy that has helped us with a lot of the mental game. He learned under Ken Ravizza, that was legendary, and Ken learned under Dorfman. And so when you're talking about guys that went through that lineage, that's the lineage of mental game. And so with Hawk, I've always been a big Brian Kane guy. Hawk's a big Brian Kane guy. And the messages that Brian presents to our athletes are tremendous, and to get reinforced on a daily basis from Coach Hawk or any of our coaches just continues to help out Brian's message in the locker room.
Love to hear that. Another big weekend ahead for Oregon baseball. Again, Washington this weekend, Washington State the weekend after, the Washington State series at home after this weekend's up in Seattle. Final regular season weekend next weekend before the Pac-12 tournament, and then the postseason after that. Oregon baseball, a couple of big-time weekends, and Washington State towards the bottom of the Pac-12. These could be some pretty big wins for the Ducks as they try to improve their resume heading into the postseason in the Pac-12 tournament. And with that, we'll step aside for the first time today. And when we come back, we'll talk some track and field here on Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Summer's here, and with a new Toyota, you can make the most out of summer with all your friends. Most of my friends happen to be four-legged.
Your summer starts here, but it all ends June 3rd. Toyota, let's go places. Dealer inventory may vary. See your participating Toyota dealer for details.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Summer's here, and with a new Toyota, you can make the most out of summer with all your friends. Most of my friends happen to be four-legged.
Your summer starts here, but it all ends June 3rd. Toyota, let's go places. Dealer inventory may vary. See your participating Toyota dealer for details.
Your daily dose of Oregon athletics. This is Duck Insider from Learfield.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council. You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Back in the Country Financial Studio, we just talked a little bit about Oregon baseball and their big weekend ahead, and it's also a big weekend for track and field. The Pac-12 track and field championships started today. It started at 10 a.m. with the women's javelin and the start of heptathlon in the Pac-12 track and field championships. The schedule for the Pac-12 track and field championships varies with a single event broadcast during the first 2 days before Sunday's extended live show on the Pac-12 networks. But the schedule today, 10 a.m. women's javelin on the Pac-12 Bay Area, Los Angeles, Oregon, Washington, and then at 1 o'clock was the men's javelin on the Pac-12 networks, and then 4:50 is the 10,000 meters on the Pac-12 networks plus Pac-12 Arizona, Mountain Schools, Oregon, and Washington. The women of Oregon in track and field ranked 3rd in the country and are the defending Pac-12 champions, while the Oregon men's team finished 6th a season ago in the conference meet in Walnut Creek, California. Today the meet is going to be in Colorado, and the Ducks have 10 scoring opportunities, 5 men, 5 women across 6 events today. In the men's, in the 10,000 meters, Devin Hart and Isaiah Stewart are going to be competing in the 10,000 meters in the javelin. Gavin Korkikoski and as well as Asher Krell, as well as Zach Young, are going to be competing in the javelin. On the women's side of things, the 10,000 meters with Maddie Elmore, who's having a great season. She'll be competing there with Annika Thompson in the long jump. Alyssa Hickey, who was the national runner-up a year ago, two-time Pac-12 champion in 2021 and 2022. She's going to be competing in the long jump. And Shelby Moran, who won the Pac-12 title a year ago in the hammer, she's going to be competing today. Kohana Nakato, the last of the 10 athletes that are going to be scored today. Collectively, the Ducks have 6 entries in the combined events, 2 in the decathlon and then 4 in the heptathlon. Along with the finals and the start of combined events, Friday's schedule includes the preliminary rounds in the 200 meters, as well as the 1,500 meters and the 400-meter hurdles. The schedule for the postseason, again, it starts today with the Pac-12 Championships, May 10th through May 12th, and then May 22nd through 25th will be the NCAA West Preliminary in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and then in Eugene, Oregon, Hayward Field, June 5th through June 8th is going to be the NCAA Championship. So you're definitely going to want to put that in your calendar. Prepare for that. The NCAA Championships at Hayward Field in Tracktown, USA, Eugene, Oregon, June 5th through June 8th. Pivoting over to softball, yesterday a tough loss for Oregon softball down on the farm in the Pac-12 tournament, a 7-4 loss for Oregon against Utah, and now they wait. They have to wait until Sunday to find out where they're going for the NCAA postseason selection Sunday, happening this upcoming Sunday. The Ducks down to number 32 in the RPI. So even though they lost yesterday, they were number 31 in the RPI yesterday, down to just 32, and so looking like maybe a 2 seed, maybe a 3 seed. We'll just have to wait and see on Sunday, but that's what's happening with Oregon softball. Mentioned it earlier, Mike Jorgensen was coming in to talk things over with Joey Mack. He sat down with him earlier on this week, and they had a long conversation, almost about 30 minutes worth of content talking about the conclusion of Oregon spring football. Here is Mike Jorgensen with Joey Mack.
Well, when you call Mike Jorgensen and you say, Jorgie, we haven't had you on to review spring football yet, Jorgie goes, I'll be there. Jorgie has an actual job. Jorgie has a day job.
This is an actual job.
No, this is a paid hobby.
It's just different.
It's different. It's different. But that's why you look buttoned up and all nice, and I'm just sitting here in my Oregon crew neck. And have you not totally changed your office attire yet, even in the football off season? You can't just wear polos every day.
Well,
and go golfing?
Fridays.
And
you know, with the weather coming,
yeah.
when the sunshine comes, the polos are going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
The office wardrobe has casualized, hasn't it?
It has, big time.
Like you used to be in a suit most days, didn't you?
Well, you know, dress shirts and dress shoes and not Levi's and that type of deal. So it's a little bit more casual. And yeah, I mean, it is. It's become casual, but at the same time, you know, it's one of those ones where people, I think, feel pretty. You don't want it to become casual sloppy.
Agreed.
Because there are times when it gets that direction, and I see that in offices I go in and out of. So we try to keep it, you know, casual. Hats every once in a while we'll allow on Fridays.
On Fridays, yeah. I don't wear hats on the show because you can't see my face with the lights, and it's real Revenge of the Sith type stuff.
And the Bills are getting really big on some of those hats too.
They are, yeah. No, so I hear you. Well, Jorgie's with us. We have not reviewed the spring game with Jorgie because we had a condensed post-game show because we had baseball to get to up in Corvallis. So, spring game, what were your takeaways? Like, what are your headlines out of the spring game?
You know, a ways to go, I guess I would say. I think any coaches would say in every position they've got a ways to go. But you could see the talent there. And the defense really showed out, obviously. It's tough when you mix and match players on what you would consider a first team or a second team or a Group A and Group B and that type of deal. And, you know, I think at times the defense, frankly, as the scrimmage went along, took advantage of some of those. But at the same time, in the second half, the offenses woke up.
Right.
And the defenses were chasing everybody all over the place. But you can see the talent is there for this team to really take off this fall. But there's some key pieces that are going to have to come together, and including, again, I'm always as a quarterback going to go to the quarterbacks as talent is there, but got to learn that offense a little bit more quickly, particularly for Gabriel and Moore.
You know, to that point, though, like, I personally like that in the spring game it wasn't the traditional 1s versus 2s. I like that moving piece, and I to me, football now, you're playing so many more guys. Like, if you look at participation charts in a football game from last year versus a football game 10 years ago, there's way more guys on that participation chart. I think the whole idea of 1s versus 2s, it's so much more situational now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what I like about you talk about the amount of players that are playing and the amount of players that go head-to-head in these games. It benefited Oregon last year, again, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, when you had fresh bodies series after series. And again, what I like to focus in on is the defensive line. When you go 30-plus sacks last year, and in the previous year you were in the teens, it's because of not only talent, but fresh bodies being able to come in and out of the game. And so being able to put the players against each other in different types of situations, oftentimes it ends up a 1 versus a 1. And that's the way that you always hear coaches say, iron sharpens iron, and you get going against each other. But it's a deep team. Yeah, I don't think you really saw much of a drop-off in a lot of different positions, regardless of what a Group A or Group B or Group C that was in there.
We'll talk through some positions, but you hit on the quarterbacks. What'd you see?
I saw a lot of talent. I saw a lot of talent there. I saw a guy like Austin Novosad, who I think has grown up and grown into his body in a short period of time. A guy that I think this was his third spring. Mm-hmm. I think it was his third spring, and he just physically looked like a different guy. Ball came off his hand completely different. And you can also tell that Novosad's been in this offense a lot longer than some of the other guys because he was very comfortable on that type of deal. And yet when you see Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore operate, you also see the talent. And it's just a matter of how quickly they learn this offense and stop thinking and start reacting. And then Luke Moga, I mean – man, I'll tell you, the guy can run, and it's just a matter of maturing his body a little bit. What a deep quarterback room they have.
Luke Moga almost caught the running back in one particular play. Right? Like you talk about a guy who was a track star.
Ran him down.
Yeah, the running back tracked down by the quarterback. I mean, those are the fun things, too, that you get to see in a spring game. Dante Moore was upset that his touchdown got wiped off the board at the end, but we can understand in a real game that might have been a little different.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit different.
A little bit.
I think, too, in the running back room, like, Jorgie, I got asked a couple times last week in doing similar interviews after the spring game, like, well, who's someone we're not talking about that may jump? And to me, maybe it's Noah Whittington. I mean, you talk about a guy that we haven't yet seen him get back to full strength, and I mean, he was a 1A, 1B type guy with Bucky Irving. Like, I think that could be a huge benefit. That room's got some depth.
He's a guy you want back, and you want him to be confident and healthy. That's the main thing with it. When you suffer that type of injury, it's not a matter whether he has the ability or doesn't have the ability. It's the confidence that he's going to have that he can make the same cuts given the injury what it was. But they've brought him along. I know the coaches have talked about the progress that he's made. So when you take a guy like Jordan James and you put him with Whittington, and all of a sudden you sprinkle in Harris into the mix. And what got me really excited was to see Harris line up at wide receiver towards the end, run a slant pattern, catch the ball right in stride and right into the end zone he went. Now you've got three guys that are threats out of the backfield, can play wide receiver, can play slot, can catch the ball out of the backfield. You want running backs that can catch the ball in this offense because that's what's made this offense so dangerous.
Well, and I mean, it's really the evolution of the running back position, right? I mean, there's been so much talk about how the running back has changed in the NFL, the value of the position. Well, the value of the position to me is the versatility.
Well, that's what made Bucky Irving such a value to the NFL is what he can do from that running back position. I mean, it's not only taking handoffs and making people miss in the hole and having the burst that he has, but you can line him up at 4 or 5 different positions on offense that have nothing to do with the running back position, and it just creates mismatches all the time out there on linebackers. And so that's the benefit these running backs see in this offense, and that's how the offense benefits from them.
Pass catchers in general, a lot of great options. A lot of options in the wide receiver room.
Big, deep group. Yeah. Big, deep group, and you talked about wide receivers. I'm not going to jump to tight end because I know you will, but
they can be in the same group sometimes.
Well, then big, deep group, and it's going to be tough for defenses to defend this offense given the talent that they have. And protection is going to be, I know we're going to go to offensive line and talk about it. Protection is going to be a big part of it because, when you've had the last 2 years and 14, 27 total games,
right.
And you're like a 10 or 11 sacks combined in those 2 seasons, boy, Oregon's been successful because the quarterback's been protected and obviously accurate at the same time. That's going to have to continue, and I think they get the makings of it with the offensive line once they all play as a cohesive group, and you hope to get to 7 or 8. But this offense, I think, is really, really dangerous.
To that point with the depth at receiver, too, I mean, Do you have to have the go-to guy? Like, do you have to have?
Still helps.
You know, I mean, like it's such a moving target. I feel like, right? Like Troy Franklin, the numbers speak for themselves. Tez Johnson came on real strong at the end of the year. I don't know. Like, it helps to have a guy you can throw one up to, but the depth is important.
It is. I mean, you'd love to have 2 or 3 alphas. I mean, frankly, Oregon found that out when they played Washington last year.
That's
you
true.
know, as Washington's, particularly in the Pac-12 championship game, when you're having to defend 3 draft choices at the wide receiver position, it's difficult. But it always helps to have one, because every time you come to the line of scrimmage, where's Tez Johnson? Whereas last year it was, where's Troy Franklin? And all of a sudden Tez was the guy too. So then you had 2 guys to have to defend. You always helps to have an alpha, and the more alphas that you can add at any position just makes it that much more difficult on the opposing team.
It absolutely is, and we've seen that throughout this offseason in the way that head coach Dan Lanning has recruited. He's recruiting for depth, not only in the transfer portal, but also out of high school. And, you know, Oregon's wide receiving room, very stacked running back group as well. I mean, there's a lot of playmakers on that Oregon offense. Mike Jorgensen and Joey Mack both chatting again. A long conversation. That was just part 1. And with that, we'll take a timeout. When we come back, we'll have part 2 for you here on Duck Insider from the Country Financial Studio here on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey Duck fans, we're all about protecting our home turf here in Eugene. You should do the same for your home with Country Financial Insurance. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, yours can. If something happens to your home, make sure you can rebuild the same house in the same place. Call a local representative or 866-COUNTRY and get a solid defense for your home. Home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Casualty Insurance Company, or Country Preferred Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. Property must meet age and condition requirements, which vary by state.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, we're more than just an award-winning golf course and practice facility. Our events team offers all-inclusive event pricing that allows us to take care of all the details while you enjoy your event. Our indoor and outdoor venues offer you a wide variety of fully staffed options that put the focus on you. From weddings to business and social events, at Shadow Hills Country Club Events Center, you get the benefits of a resort atmosphere and amenities in a peaceful country setting, just minutes from downtown Eugene. Call for a tour today or visit shadowhillsevents.com.
You're listening to Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer.
In response to attacks against Asian Americans, Maddie Park raised over $250,000 to donate cab rides to the Asian community.
There is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
Support the Asian community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
Put your phone on D&D. That means that do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always sing with me. So put your phone on D&D. That means that do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always remember this beat.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Back here in the Country Financial Studio, Joey Mack and Mike Jorgensen breaking down the spring game. Also, shout out to everybody that came to the spring game a few weeks ago. Again, I know this kind of gets lost, but 28,414 pounds of food were donated to Food for Lane County, which is just huge. So thank you for the Duck fans coming out and, getting to support those Oregon Duck student athletes on the field. There was a lot that happened on the field, and Joey and Jorgie were breaking it down. Here's part number 2 of that conversation.
Touched on the mix and match too, particularly on the offensive line. The protection, the O-line gets a lot of credit. A guy who was a unanimous All-American and a draft pick in Jackson Powers Johnson gets a lot of credit. You talk too about Bo Nick gets it out quick. A lot of receivers that get it out quick and they make those quick catches. That's how this offense is designed, to get guys in space. But protection does matter, doesn't it?
It is. It is. Anytime you have protection and, a quarterback that's athletic, that helps. And all these quarterbacks are athletic. That's what helps, and it's going to lead to it. But you got to make good quality decisions, too, because Bo Nix the last couple of years, particularly in year 2, there just weren't a whole lot of interceptable turnover balls that he put up there. And so that's what you want to see from the QBs in the room.
It's hard to quantify what exactly experience does for a player, but particularly a quarterback. I mean, to go from Bo Nix, who started more games than anybody in the history of college football at the quarterback position, to then go to Dylan Gabriel, a guy who's thrown for a bajillion yards at the college level. What sticks out to you with an experienced quarterback? Like, how can you tell that the experience has paid off?
They've seen it.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it's a different league, maybe different competition you're going to be playing or different guys in practice that you go against, they've seen almost every single situation you can see. Every disguise from a defensive back and from a defensive backfield. Every disguise from a linebacker. The pressure that might come up in the middle and where you go when that pressure comes or when it begins to close around you. The biggest thing for these quarterbacks, I think, with this offense is just the confidence and the trust that you're going to have with your offensive line and the group. That takes time to build. Just like an offensive line, when you lose JPJ and guys like that, they're going to have to have the confidence in each other. And we talked about it last year before the season started in 2023. Joey, I felt like this offense was going to take, and the offensive line was going to take 4 or 5 games before they really hit their stride. It was about Colorado when they really hit their stride because they had confidence in each other. That's what's going to have to happen this year with Idaho and Boise State and the non-league schedule you have. Is that's when you're going to build the confidence and hopefully get better then, because then you're going to hit the ground running once you get into the Big 10.
Yeah.
I want to say Big 16 and
it's
Big 18.
Big 18. Can we just start calling it the Big 18?
Yeah.
I mean, I know the brand.
It's the Power 4 now, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So
I got to start getting used to that. Remember, it was the Power 5. Then it was like the Autonomy 5. We used that because the autonomous conferences with the legislation, and now isn't it really the dominant 2? Can I start calling it that?
It's becoming.
Yeah. The dominant 2 in the Big 10 and the SEC. The playoffs going to change. I guess while we're on the subject, I mean, has it hit you? The Pac-12 logos are coming off the field. Big 10 logos going on.
I think of that spring game was when it kind of hit me,
Really?
looking down. Yeah, and just seeing the logo right in front of our press box, on the 40-yard line or so, which is about where we line up, is just going, man, that's going to look different when we get out there.
Yeah.
What's it going to look like?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest mystery, but I'm ready. I am. I'm excited for it. Sad to see it go, but excited to see it happen.
Do you have a list of places that you're excited to go to? Because you've been to some, right, in the Big Ten. Not all, but you've been to some.
Yeah, I'd say probably 2/3 of them over time, and a lot of them haven't changed.
Right,
That's
that's
what's
true.
funny about
That's
it.
true.
I mean,
Yeah.
Illinois, it's been a long time since I've been to Champaign-Urbana, but at the same time, taking a look at that stadium, I don't think it's changed a whole lot. No, I'm looking forward to seeing Penn State one day, hopefully. Is being able to see that in a whiteout and Oregon, Penn State. Obviously not since the Rose Bowl in the mid-'90s have those two teams gone against each other. But it'll be odd seeing that, let alone traveling to places that you don't roll off the tongue every day, like going to Rutgers and Piscataway, is that what it is?
Piscataway, yeah. So I've been thinking about this. We do a segment, and by we, I mean Jorgie, does a segment on the pregame show that's This Week in Duck Football History. I mean,
we're going to be different.
You're going to have to go
isn't it?
back, yeah.
I know.
I mean, have you thought about that?
I have, yeah.
Dude, there's going to be some throwbacks.
Yeah, there's going to be some, and I wish we could find the audio.
I know.
With some of those games, and we might be able to. Who knows? Going back to Michigan and Ann Arbor and Dennis Dixon.
That one we've got some. I know we do.
Might be able to find some
this
of that.
I think I've said this on the air before. I think Jerry and I have talked about it, but we didn't have a digital archive until the 2009 season, and this was pre me being here, and so there's just sort of a hodgepodge of what we have found and digitized, but. Yeah, the one of the saddest things that I can say from a record standpoint is we just don't have tapes of every game. We don't have a call from you guys for every game. It's just not how – I guess it's just not what we did back then.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, it does.
It sucks.
It really does. So, but, there's going to be some fun ones to go to, and I think, looking forward to the trip to Wisconsin, Michigan again.
You ready to jump around?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, Shout's better, though.
Yeah, they do a nice job there, though.
Yeah, but
Fraternity Row right next to the stadium in Madison. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So see, he's excited.
Cool.
I mean,
yeah.
as a football connoisseur that you are, I mean, this is going to be high-level competition. I don't know if it's going to be higher-level competition than the Pac-12 at times. I mean, I understand that the Pac-12 and the college football playoff is the measuring stick, but Jorgie, I've always felt like the Pac-12 was pretty good from top to bottom. I feel like other conferences, you probably are a little more top-heavy. That's at least been my perception. Is that an overgeneralization? What are some of your takeaways as we transition to a new era?
Yeah, it's funny. You think about it. I was just thinking about that when you were talking about it. I was thinking, okay, is the Big Ten a little more top-heavy? Well, last year, Ohio State, Michigan wins the national championship.
Right.
You always think of those two and Penn State in there, and then every once in a while you sprinkle in, if Iowa could play offense, they would be, right at the very top of that and that type of deal, even though they play great football.
And historically, Nebraska.
So it's just, it's different. I think when I think of Big Ten, I think of bands. From top to bottom.
Yeah.
The best bands.
Yeah,
from top to bottom.
You're right.
There's no drop off from anywhere, and of course we'll find out when we see the Rutgers and the Marylands of the world that we've never seen before. But from a band standpoint, a league with bands, that's the league.
And that's the tradition, pageantry. I mean, it's amazing. Like I like most people have had a lot of these debates about, the powers, the blue bloods. Well, the reason that a lot of them are east of us, those schools are older. I mean, it's just history, right? Like a lot of our schools are just newer to the landscape, quite literally, with the geographic movement of the United States. So I'm kind of interested in that. Just like for example, we were in Pittsburgh, right, for the men's basketball championship, and just walking around that area, you realize, wow, that building's a heck of a lot older than any that I walk by every day.
You're right, yeah. And that's the other thing I do look forward to is, some of the history that you see and the type of construction that you see in certain areas. I mean, when we played Ohio State in Columbus here 3-4 years ago, and I remember we were on our way from the hotel to the stadium, and just the way the houses are built and how they look and how well they were taken care of. And I'm sure there's parts of towns that you don't see where it's not that way. Right. But even down in Atlanta, playing Georgia a couple of years ago, and just seeing the type of construction and the brick that takes place in the Midwest and the old factories, and just it's different because it's older and it's been there longer.
Certainly is different and a lot to look forward to in the coming years. Excited for Oregon to take that turn to the Big Ten and a lot more fun experiences for the fans to travel towards the East Coast. Another timeout, and when we come back, part number 3 between Joey and Jorgie here on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Summer's here, and with a new Toyota, you can make the most out of summer with all your friends. Most of my friends happen to be four-legged.
Your summer starts here, but it all ends June 3rd. Toyota, let's go places. Dealer inventory may vary. See your participating Toyota dealer for details.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Summer's here, and with a new Toyota, you can make the most out of summer with all your friends. Most of my friends happen to be four-legged.
Your summer starts here, but it all ends June 3rd. Toyota, let's go places. Dealer inventory may vary. See your participating Toyota dealer for details.
This is Duck Insider, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey, son, how are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it. Navigating without a compass, eyes waiting, started to wonder. Metamorphosis, loss of who you thought you was.
When your kid can't find the language, help them find the lyrics. Listen to the Sound It Out album and get tips and tools to start a conversation at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
Adoption of teens from foster care is a topic not enough people know about, and we're here to change that. I'm April Dinwiddie, host of the new podcast, Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Each episode brings you compelling real-life adoption stories told by the families that live them with commentary from experts. Visit adoptuskids.org/podcast or subscribe to Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families and the Ad Council.
Two-thirds through, Georgie and Joey talking Oregon football and wrapping up the spring game conversation. Part number 3, here it is.
Now to the spring game again, and to the position groups. We haven't talked defense yet.
Defense, yep.
Let's start up front. There's no doubt that Oregon has had a lot of veterans along the defensive line the last few years, and that keeps up, though maybe not as 6th or 7th year guys anymore on the defensive line, at least not as many.
Yeah, it's funny. I think about this every 2 or 3 years. You'll have 2 or 3 really good defensive linemen that become just that normal household name, and then all of a sudden they disappear, and the new guys come in type of situation, and they end up making names for themselves. But you have to wait until that happens, and you lose a guy like Brandon Dorlus, for example. I mean, obviously Birch comes back, and a lot of other guys that we're going to learn about real quick and that type of deal. But when you lose a guy like Dorlus, who was so multidimensional on the positions he could play, you could move him outside as a defensive end, you could move him inside. You could match him up on where you thought the mismatch was because he was that talented. And that's what Oregon was able to do with him. And so there's new guys that come to the table. What I love about that defensive line, and I'm going to include the outside linebackers in that group because they come up and they rush. They cover too, but they rush. That group as a whole, and particularly on the outside with the linebackers, I think may be as deep as it's ever been on the outside in particular, with deep talent is just amazing, whether it's Uiagalelei or whether it's Purchase or whether it's Tuioti, or, I mean, you can go boom, 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 and there's no drop-off. That offense that Oregon faces, whatever offense it's going to be, they're going to get tired of seeing those guys come in and out.
Well, and the depth at the edge rushing positions, I mean, as the quarterback and I guess the running back dynamic has shifted in football, so too has the edge rush. I mean, that's probably the most important position defensively now. Remember when it used to be the middle linebacker was a top 10 draft pick? Now it's the edge rusher is a top 10 draft pick, and the Ducks have a lot of them. That's valuable, isn't it?
Athletic, and that's the other thing.
And guys that played as freshmen.
Yeah, guys that played a lot as freshmen, and so that helps out. And the other thing I think it helps out on that sometimes gets missed, and we'll see how much they get used, is in years in the past, I can think of where Oregon had 4, 5, 6 really good inside and outside linebackers that could run, that were athletic. What that does for special teams when you put a guy out there that's 6'4", 250 pounds, and can run like a tight end or what have you down the field, you put them on kickoff coverage teams, you put them on punt coverage teams, you put them on different special teams, because you just up the level of big bodies that are athletic to be able to make plays, and so it spills over into that piece of it too when you get guys like that.
Talking football with Georgie, linebackers. I mean, Jeffrey Bassa brings back a lot of experience and getting better and better.
Love that guy. Yeah, he is. Just the more he can play linebacker and the less he played DB long ago, it's like that was in a dream far away that he played DB at one time.
Came in as a safety.
Yeah. And he's just naturally working himself into being an NFL level type of inside linebacker. They could do so many things with him, not just play him at that linebacker position and take the big guys on if he has to take them on head on, but from a standpoint of blitzing him and being able to run down running backs and quarterbacks and various pressure packages that they can do. That's what I love about him, and Justin Jacobs too. I think he's just, again, a guy that came from the Big Ten, now going back to the Big Ten. It's going to be interesting to see how, if you can put together a full year of health, what that's going to look like.
Yeah, and that's the truth. I mean, we saw how good Justin Jacobs could be when he got healthy.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Now, in the secondary, Georgie, I mean, there's no doubt a little bit of a new look for the Ducks, especially at the safety position.
Yeah, safety position is where, is my biggest question mark, and not because of the type of players that they have, whether it's Savage or some others that have come in. I think they're fully capable. It's just like a new quarterback, getting those guys up to speed. When you have Muhammad obviously transfer in from Washington, and
you know what he can do.
You know what he can do. He's a good player, and you still have Dante Manning and Florent. You get a lot of other guys out there. Now all of a sudden you've got 3 or 4 corners that that used to be a great advantage to have when you played Washington State, right? Have 4 corners. You needed 4 corners. Now you don't necessarily play offenses in this league that are going to put 4 wideouts out there on you, and yet you've got some really talented cover guys that you can put in a nickel safety type of position too, to just put that many more athletes on the field.
Well, and especially in this defense, I mean, the Ducks like to utilize that, what we used to call a rover, a star, depending on what the defense deployment is. Like, that nickel position has become more and more valuable in college football.
Yeah, it is. It is, and again, I would be remiss if not mentioning Tysheen Johnson's name. Yeah, returning at the safety position is you look at Evan Williams. You hate to lose him. Yeah, I want to call him Bennett Williams
every time.
And then I want to call him Evan Bennett. And I thought, did I just get that right? Evan Williams, I got it right. Yeah. So anyhow, you just take a look at that safety position. That back end is really, really important to what they have to be able to do to help this defense out. But at the same time, they're better if you got pressure on the quarterback, and that's what I like about what they have up front.
No doubt. Now, I realize that after you alluded to the tight ends, I never did ask you directly about the tight ends. Sorry to the tight end position. Tight ends?
No, well, we talked about it with the receivers. T. Ferg.
A little bit.
But Patrick Herbert.
I think T. Ferg, by the way, in the spring game made all of the drops he's going to have all year. Right?
He was just going, what am I doing?
It was like, it just happens.
I've never done this in my life.
You just have that day.
He's a mismatch. He's a nightmare for defenses, and I look forward to it. And the thing is, he's developed so well as a blocker that it makes that tight end position that he plays, and when he's out running patterns, that much better, because they have to honor what he does at the line of scrimmage. And you can just do so much with him. I'm excited to see him. A good guy, too. Great guy.
So you've been doing this for nearly 4 decades.
Going on that. Isn't it amazing?
So I qualify this question with that because, Jorgie, in April, the season ticket sold out.
How about that?
Your reaction?
I mean, I don't know if I expected that, honestly. I figured the same excitement, the same great fans would be packing this stadium, but to be able to sell that many more season tickets is just awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe it, and I can't wait to see people just frothing at the mouth inside the stadium there, let alone people trying to get tickets. And sorry, you're going to have a hard time getting tickets to games.
And that's fun again, isn't it?
Oh, my gosh.
The sellout
It's
streak.
always fun, but that just makes it even
But it has
more
that
special.
same buzz, doesn't it? I mean, the sellout streak that was continuing through the years with Marcus Mariota, I mean, there's something about it.
Yeah.
There's a buzz around the community right now, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, and it's so much fun. I can't believe, and I think a lot to look forward to this season, and it all starts in late August, early September, and you got to take business then to make those bigger games that are getting blown up in the middle of the season. Continue to make them that big. You got to take care of those early games.
Yeah, the off-season work, the individual workouts that go on now, team getting to know each other, and then hit the ground running. Anything else fans should know? What's on your mind?
Just can't wait. Can't wait. Just people, get your rear ends out there. If you get a chance to buy tickets when they come available, even those first 3 games, get in, because you're going to have a hard time getting in otherwise if you don't. So get out, support your Ducks. Just can't wait to see this team. Love the coaching staff. Coach Lanning's really put a great program together.
How's the golf game going to be after this summer for you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have not touched it. I bought new clubs last fall, new irons, and I haven't hit a golf ball with them.
Well, that sucks.
I know. It's like, what is going on? Next Thursday, the MDA.
Okay.
Yeah, their function on Friday, the dinner on Thursday night I'm going to, and then playing with a group out at Eugene Country Club on Friday afternoon, so I'll get my first swings in. I'm hoping to sneak out, maybe hit some range balls before then, so I don't embarrass myself.
Hey, you got to warm back up, get back into the flow.
I can't wait.
But, Jorgie, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Looking forward to another year.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Look forward to it.
And here's to hopefully success for Oregon football next season, and hopefully success for Jorgie during this summer golf season. Good luck to him this upcoming summer. One final timeout, and when we come back, we'll give you a full look across Oregon athletics here on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Hey Duck fans, we're all about protecting our home turf here in Eugene. You should do the same for your home with Country Financial Insurance. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, yours can. If something happens to your home, make sure you can rebuild the same house in the same place. Call a local representative or 866-COUNTRY and get a solid defense for your home. Home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Casualty Insurance Company, or Country Preferred Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. Property must meet age and condition requirements, which vary by state.
More Duck Insider coming up on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. He sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself.
For many military veteran caregivers, their caregiving journey starts earlier in life and lasts longer. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Back in the Country Financial Studio, Nat Uretsky with you this afternoon. Caden directing behind the desk, as well as Scott Phillips running audio today. Fun show for you guys throughout this afternoon. We talk some Oregon baseball as they get set to face off against Washington. Ducks versus Dogs tonight. Ryan Milano going to have the call, 7:05. Pre-game starting about 15 minutes beforehand on the Oregon Sports Network. Saturday tomorrow going to be 5:05 on the Pac-12 networks. And then today and Sunday are going to be on Pac-12 Washington, with Sunday's game at 12:05. Big series for Oregon. It always just means a little bit more going up against Washington, and Ryan Milano is going to have you covered for that one. Throughout the day, track and field's going to have the Pac-12 Track and Field Championships live from Colorado. Again, we already started earlier today with the women's javelin starting at 10 a.m., and then there's going to be more events happening throughout the day. At 4:50, it's going to be the 10,000 meters, so you definitely want to peek on that one and see what happens with Maddie Elmore. She competes for the Oregon women's team. They're number 3 in the country. That's pretty high, and this is a very big weekend as they get set for the rest of the postseason Pac-12 championships, then the NCAA West Preliminary in Fayetteville, May 22nd through 25th. And then the NCAA Championships back at home at Hayward Field, June 5th through 8th. Fun show with Joey and Jorgie talking. I think we covered it all. We'll see you next time next week here on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Don't you wish your life came with a warning app?
Stop. That dog does not want to be petted.
A heads up before something bad happens.
You should not send that text.
Uh-oh.